I'm gonna end with this last guy. We're gonna talk about Tony White real quick. The
Mhm.
Tony White thing, that hire when they first hired him, uh, um, when I asked people about Tony White, I kind of got mixed reviews with him. Um, it was a rumor last year that they had took play calling duties from him like midway through the
Mm.
season last year. I don't
Kind
know
of when
how
they had
true
some
that is.
struggles.
Yeah, I don't know how true that
Mm.
is. I did hear that. I know people keep referencing the fact they did a good job against Ohio State, which is true, but I think people need to remember that Ohio State had like a shit ton of injuries on the O line early in the season. So
Mhm.
that they O line didn't really form up together and become a good O line until like week 9, week 10, week 11. And even then, when they played against Michigan, Michigan pretty much dominated them.
Right.
Um, I mean, don't get me wrong, Ohio State won that championship. Very talented team. You know what I'm saying? Not taking nothing away from Ohio State. I'm just saying they had struggles on the offensive line because the guy that just got drafted, the top guy that was like the best guy in the draft, he didn't really play season. He was out
Mhm.
most of the season. So I forgot what his name is. But one thing I will say about Tony White though, that everybody said that pretty consistent was he's a really good communicator. So he does do a good job of getting his message across and bringing the whole defense together. I think a lot of times these defensive staffs, and I know this was a problem with Fuller last year. I know Fuller and Surtain didn't get along at all because Fuller
I heard that too.
Fuller vision of the defense. He has a one concept way of which way he want to coach defense, right? But sometimes you don't have the pieces for this stuff, and you have to be able to do what the players can do to make the defense better. And I know for a fact there was a big deal when they had Earl Little in the slot. They had him playing nickel
Hmm. Yeah.
because they saw him like Jamie Robinson. They kept kind of comparing to Jamie Robinson, and um Sertain was like, we need to put him at safety. It's not a slot. He don't have the hips to move and do the
Yeah.
things you're trying to ask him
He's
to
not
do.
twitchy enough. Yeah.
He's not twitchy enough to do the stuff you're asking him to do, and he doesn't read plays fast enough, right? So that was a big deal. So when they did finally move Earl a little back, you saw he played better. You know, if you watched the Miami game, he was really good in the
Mhm.
Miami game.
Yes.
So I do think that Tony White would be a better communicator, understanding what his staff is telling him, the players, the position coaches are telling him what can be done instead of what you want to do. Because this, you could always say, I want to do this, but if somebody's saying what the players, they can't do that, right?
Mhm.
We got to design something that they can do. And I do think Tony White will be a lot better at that. You know, so I'm actually a more bullish on him at Florida State.
Mhm.
I'm thinking with Matt Rule. Like I said, Matt Rule is a difficult coach to understand because he's a very demanding coach. But I like demanding coaches, but I do know that can
Me
wear on
too.
people. That can
Yeah.
wear on people. So you know, and Matt Rule ain't some God's gift to college football to football either. You know, he's had one good stop at Baylor and a good stop at Temple. I think that was it
Mhm.
though. So in Nebraska, I mean, they talk about him like he's doing so great in Nebraska. He hasn't won over 7 games, I don't think. No,
Mhm.
he hasn't won over 8 games. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know, but that's my thoughts on Tony White.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely has a track record for, you know, uh, turning defenses around and having them very respectable. Nebraska was a very respectable defense. When you look at where they ranked last year, it's just coming in here and doing something new. That's always going to take time. I think the good thing is that he does have talent on this defense, especially on the back end, and I think that's going to be key. Because I think for a while up front, you might have some struggles, so you're going to need your secondary not only to cover well, but they're probably going to have to be good against the run for a little bit. While you're trying to figure some things out.
Right.
Because while you're struggling up front, which I think is going to take some time, that's going to mean that your linebackers are not going to be clean.
Right.
So guys like Stephon Thompson came over from Nebraska. Him and Elijah Herring,
That's actually
the
why
transfer.
I actually expect to see them do a lot of blitzing early in the season. I really do. I
Okay.
think they're gonna blitz a lot because I think they're going to have a hard time reading and reacting. So you have to just basically put guys in certain places. So I do expect them to do a
Mm,
lot of blitzing. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you good. No, it's just that Thompson and Heron have talent, but if they're not being kept clean, that's going to be tough. So um, yeah. Tony. I mean, he has some talent to work with. So I think it's just going to be about how long is it going to take this thing to gel. Which part of defense is going? Because you got three different levels. So you got the D line, the linebackers, and the secondary. So which group is going to catch on first? One group always seems to be ahead of the other. So I'm hoping that the defensive line gets at least decent before this Bama game because I want to see a lot of good effort and a lot of good play against Bama because that's a pro ready, pro style offensive line. Guys that go in the league every year. So let's say it's not going to be the end of the world if they get beat up a little bit because you're playing Bama. It's the first game and this is new. But if they come out with good effort against Bama, which I think they will, I mean, I think it's just because for one, you're playing at home, and two, I think there's a little sour taste in the mouth of Florida State with the fact that Bama got in that playoff a couple of years. So that's gonna be interesting, man. Just how they start out with the Bama game, I think is gonna say a lot about where the unit goes, and that's a perfect test with a school like Bama.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so too. I think so